Ferrari is working on several fronts for the near future in Formula One. One of these is the ability to optimize the car's performance through tire usage. We know very well how important and necessary this factor is, currently decisive. It is clear that various parameters contribute to the optimal use of the compounds, and unfortunately, as often happens, a single unsuitable value is enough to throw everything off. This is somewhat the problem Ferrari is facing, which inevitably affects race results. Starting further back is never generally advantageous. Moreover, as we have explained yesterday, and as Charles Leclerc himself confirmed, the Ferrari SF-25 car suffers more than other top teams from the harmful turbulence of the slipstream. This means that running behind a rival in dirty air further limits the performance of the Maranello team. Technical director Loic Serra is pushing hard on this key element, trying once and for all to gain a clear advantage from the tires. Failing to do so means losing a significant amount of performance, especially in the qualifying sessions. In theory, starting from the first European Grand Prix, things should change, because aiming to return to the fight at the top cannot exclude such a crucial factor. At this stage, it is also worth pointing out the different approach to tire activation between Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Looking at the telemetry chart from the final part of the qualifying lap at the 6.174-kilometer Jeddah-Corniche circuit, we notice that the two Ferrari drivers are more cautious compared to McLaren and Red Bull. The goal in this case is to stabilize tire temperatures slightly below the ideal threshold. To achieve this, Charles Leclerc maintains a constant speed between 150 and 200 kilometers per hour, accelerating sharply before the final corner to build up speed and prepare for braking. In agreement with his race engineer Riccardo Adami, Lewis Hamilton instead adopts a different strategy. He slows down well in advance before the final braking point, alternating brief accelerations and decelerations. Braking is one of the most common methods to generate energy in the tire. The Briton often uses this technique, already seen at the Bahrain International Circuit, which allows him to inject energy into the compound more consistently. However, this move does not stabilize the temperature as well as Charles Leclerc's approach. Moreover, in a context where this constant speed-up/slow-down pattern occurs, a lateral stress is generated on the surface of the tire, which absorbs energy meant to be transferred to the bulk, the metal layer under the tread, which therefore does not receive the correct heat. The way Ferrari manages the tires highlights how narrow the SF-25's operating window is. According to information gathered and reported by various Italian news media outlets, the group of Maranello engineers and technicians has identified a good development path for the car. Understanding of the car is increasing, and with it the ability to manage its behavior, race after race, over the course of the race weekend. The car's correct operating range is expanding, and especially with Charles Leclerc, progress has been made in managing the machine. Nevertheless, updates are needed to widen the operative scope and unlock further untapped performance. We therefore await the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at the Imola circuit, where the substantial update package is expected with the clear goal of improving the generation of aerodynamic downforce, a factor that, automatically, will allow the two Ferrari drivers to keep the compounds within the correct working window and, above all, for the entire duration of a flying lap. Although such a deficit in qualifying may turn into an advantage during the race, since last season Ferrari has been seeking a compromise between the two sessions. Until the Bahrain Grand Prix, there was a general phase of settling in to understand the issues encountered. Now it is time to solve them, starting from the Imola weekend. Lewis Hamilton has endured a challenging start to his Ferrari career, which is so far failing to live up to the hype. And with qualifying increasingly becoming an area for concern for the British driver once more, it is clear that Ferrari's new creation, the SF-25, goes into crisis when low fuel and slow corners combine. While Lewis Hamilton did win the China sprint from pole position, such highs have not been replicated, with the seven-time Formula One world champion yet to finish a Grand Prix ahead of his Maranello teammate Charles Leclerc, while at the two most recent rounds in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, the gap to the Monegasque driver over one lap surpassed half a second. That has led to a string of concerning comments from Lewis Hamilton, claiming there is no fix for a painful season to come, to hinting that the Ferrari bosses were losing patience and predicting that he will struggle at the upcoming Miami Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton has said he is struggling to gel with the Ferrari SF-25, which feels alien to him after 12 seasons with Mercedes. but reportedly, a critical flaw to the Ferrari Challenger has been uncovered, one which would certainly not be helping his cause. Only once so far in F1 2025 has a Ferrari made the top 3 in qualifying, and the Italian media is reporting that when the SF-25 runs with minimal fuel, the slow-speed sections of a track become a major problem, as the car goes into crisis when it is looking for mechanical grip in such conditions, as would be the case in qualifying. At the same time, it is a well-known fact that the Ferrari SF-25 is particularly sensitive to changes in ride height. Lewis Hamilton's disqualification from the Chinese Grand Prix back in April, due to excessive plank wear on his Ferrari, flagged up ride height as an issue for the team, with the British driver admitting at the following round in Japan that they were running the SF-25 higher than we would like in response. Lewis Hamilton sits P7 in the current Drivers' Championship standings, 2 positions and 16 points behind Charles Leclerc, ahead of the Miami Grand Prix, which is set to take place next weekend. The issue for Ferrari, who already brought some significant upgrades to round 4 in Bahrain, is that the further behind they fall, the less justifiable it will become to pour resource into what is fast becoming a failure of a campaign, ahead of the introduction of radical new regulations for the 2026 Formula One season. A weekend off either side of the Miami Grand Prix is giving them a chance to regather. But then, a European triple-header kicks off a run of 6 races in 8 weeks that will take us to the halfway point of the season. Starting at the Miami International Autodrome as the 6th round of the season plunges straight into competitive action with sprint qualifying on Friday night, Ferrari desperately need a breakthrough. Ferrari head to Miami still behind their leading rivals in 4th in the Constructors' Championship, although closer to 3rd-placed Red Bull and 2nd-placed Mercedes than they were after marginally outscoring both in each of the last 2 races in the Middle East. The 18 points they lost when both their cars were disqualified from the Chinese GP would have turned an 11-point deficit on Red Bull, for whom Max Verstappen has scored all but 2 of their 89 points, into a 7-point advantage. But the bigger concern for the Italian side is that already a mammoth 110 points ahead of them are McLaren, the team they finished just 14 points behind in a late run at the Constructors' title at the end of last season and had aspirations of beating this time around. There had been much speculation about the reasons behind Ferrari's lack of pace in the early stages of the season, but following Charles Leclerc's podium in Jeddah, team principal Frédéric Vasseur insisted that the potential to compete with the front-runners was still present. The French manager pointed out that the most critical issue for Ferrari was the gap between their qualifying pace and race pace. He noted that the second stint in particular had been very strong, suggesting that Ferrari had been faster than both Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen over the final 35 to 40 laps of the race. The Ferrari team boss emphasized the need for the Maranello team to focus on achieving greater consistency throughout the entire weekend. Nonetheless, he viewed the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix positively, highlighting a clear step forward in race performance. According to him, the potential was there. It was just a matter of executing better overall.